So I wasn't going to film this first session of today, but I decided I'm going to film at least a little bit of the end of it just to show what we started working on. So this is day 8. So I start with desensitization. I slap the stirrups around a little bit, yield her hindquarters. Again, I'm going to work on slapping the stirrups and making noises and patting all over her, because if you remember, the first time I was kind of patting on her, she didn't really care too much for the feeling or the noise of it. So now I'm working on having the stirrup touch her sides and also asking her to yield her hindquarters at the same time. So the first response I want them to have if they're scared of something isn't to bolt or to buck or freak out and lose control, but to yield their hindquarters. So the reason we work on that so much is so they can have a way to express that they're a little bit worried and show they're worried in a controlled manner. So the goal is, like under saddle, if I ask her to do something and she gets a little worried, then she'll yield her hindquarters. So right now I'm asking to have her flex. So I'm just going to keep standing at her side until she gives in with her nose and finds that release on her own. As the days go on, I'm going to start cutting out parts, like I won't include quite as much of the lunging or the desensitization or everything, simply because you've seen me do it in the days prior, and I kind of have a little bit of a checklist that I go through. So here, I'm asking her to canter. So right there she took one stride, and as soon as she took a stride, I let her come down. So for her, the canter was a little bit trickier to pick up and hold. So what I work on is just getting one stride at a time. And I had to cut out a few parts there because it was just like I was pretty much running and adding the pressure for quite a few circles before I got her to take a step. So that was really nice there. And I mixed it up between, after they canter, I either let them come down right away as a reward, or I push them forward into the trot or the walk still, because I don't want every time they canter, they come down into a halt. I want them to learn that they can still go forward. she's pretty good with everything I desensitize her with. But you see, I do a lot of desensitization standing still, but in a couple of the prior days you saw that I had her move with it, because horses can kind of get into a mode where they'll stand still and freeze and let you do whatever to them. Sometimes that's just how they react. And then, like, if I have her moving and, you know, like a piece of trash flows in front of us, then she could kind of get worried and freaked out, which is why I also try to desensitize when they're moving. Just showed a quick clip of the rope tossing over the saddle and a little bit of snaking it. So now I'm going to introduce her to the mark, which is great for a bunch of different things. It's great for obstacles, trailer loading, having that draw better with lunging, a little bit more of a bend, and of course mark training. So she was pretty willing just to kind of test it out with her hooves, which a lot of them are just weary about stepping on anything at all. So I rewarded right there because she stepped on it. But now you see that in the clip prior to this and in this clip that I back her up instead of walking her around and turning her to a different side. Again, I'm still using that same backup way because I don't fully trust her. But every time they're on a mark, I'm going to back them off of it. I'm not going to walk them forward off of it. And if you want to learn a little bit more about mark training and more of the specifics of it, I do have a how-to video on mark training, or at least how to start it. Once she gets more comfortable with it, I won't reward her for when she steps over it like she just did. But because she stepped on the mark, I still let her have a break and I reward her for it. But now I'm getting a little more strict. You see, I didn't have any wait time between when she stepped over the mark there because I really want her to start understanding that I want her to stay on it. And I want both front feet on it. So right now she only has one, but she didn't step off with the other one, so I'll reward it. Again, I would have liked that front right hoof to stay on the mark. Good, and she's thought about going completely back there, but then she brought that left front back on, and that's pretty much exactly the spot I want her to be in. So now I'm going to work on those pole releases again, where I'm just taking two of my fingers right at her pole and squeezing very lightly until she releases and drops her head. And now I start working on backing up the way I normally like to. Sometimes I'll have a whip in front of their chest, sometimes I won't. She's pretty soft just off of that. So I just ask for one little step at a time. And you see that I skipped, I think 1 or 2 days. And that's because I did not film on them because I was listening to music. So I'm just gonna show you where she's at with tacking up right now. So you can see how I just threw the pad up there, throw the saddle up there. Ideally I'd kind of throw the saddle up there even a little bit less gently, but I simply am not good at picking up Western saddles, so that's just how I got it up there. But if I'm cautiously putting something on my horse's back still, I don't really want to be like strapping it to them or cinching it up if I have to put it on so carefully. And I also don't want to be getting on them if I have to be super careful about it. And although I do most of my riding in English tack, I still want them to wear Western saddles because I don't know who's going to be getting them after the auction. And it's also heavier than an English saddle, which is good for when I get up there. I usually like to have a Western saddle on them to add that extra weight and the extra feeling. It makes a little bit more noise. And also, I prefer to long line in a Western saddle than an English saddle. So I don't know if that was the first time I did that or not, but pretty much put the flag kind of right where I'm going to be sitting and have it move around and make a lot of noise. You can see her get more alert during it, but she does not bolt. But again, she is standing still, so it could just be a freeze response. Now you see I'm going to have her move a little bit with moving the flag from side to side over her back. Again, important to get them used to that movement while they move. So she was a little bit cautious and kind of confused walking, but she was pretty good with it. This is actually Katie's, this isn't mine. Normally I have my pillows, but they're in Florida still. And she doesn't have too big of a reaction from it. So because I can't really get the bear to stay directly on top, I'll just do it one side at a time. And I usually have the bear on the inside, or in this case the bear, but normally like the pillow, I would have on the inside of my horse, because if they were to spook at it, they're going to run away from it. Whereas if I had it on the outside of my horse and they spook at it, they're going to run into me. And then eventually maybe I'll put something on both sides of them, but to start I'll just do one side, pretty much for the reason I just explained. So I tried to put it on top of her and slid down the side, which all of this is good. When like little mishaps happen, like when I have her go around and have the saddle pad or the saddle fall off, I'd like to see how she's going to react to stuff like that. So she handled the bear very well. I think this is her second day long lining. And I don't know if I got her first on camera or not, or if those were one of the days that I missed. But if it was one of the days that I missed, she was pretty confused the first day. She didn't do anything bad. It was just she wasn't used to me in her blind spot. So it was just a lot of, just like that turn right there, a lot of turning back and forth. Good, and she's actually really soft and sensitive to the pressure. So she pretty much just wants to make a complete and total turn when I add any pressure to either side. Good, and right here I want her to walk on the rail, which is why she's getting a little bit stuck, because she thinks I want her to completely turn, like right there. So I'm just going to stick with her. And because of all that preparation with the ropes and the flags behind on her butt, she's not too worried about when the rope gets a little bit tight behind her. So the biggest complaint I would have about her learning to longline, which isn't really too much of a complaint, is she isn't super forward, and I think it's a lot easier to work with one that's being forward when they're learning longlining. But again, she's trying. She's not doing anything bad at all. She's just trying to figure it out. And the biggest thing I have to make sure I do is as soon as she gives to the way that I am adding pressure, I immediately release the line and let it have a bunch of slack in it. Good. She's trying to find the fine line between when I ask her to change directions and when I just ask her to move over to the rail. Good, so that was a really good correction for her. And she's a lot more comfortable with me being behind her and in her blind spot. So really the first couple times I longline, I'm working on forward movement, turns, and halts. And that's it. So that was my first time asking her to halt with both reins. And she was pretty good about it. She got a little bit confused, but then she figured it out. And if anyone is interested in learning more about longlining and, you know, a little bit more in-depth and in-detailed, let me know, and I might make a video specifically just for longlining. And honestly, I'm still pretty new to it. I just started adding it not even a year ago, but like all the warm bloods I started last year, I longlined all of them. Lynx and Calliope and Calypso, I longlined all my 3 personal horses before I had it in my program, but I just did more ground driving than longlining. But I think it's a super useful tool, and I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to do it with every horse before I get on them now.
I don't talk to the camera like that. It's scary.
Yeah, I'm not a fan either. You can see she still is a little bit confused there. That was a little bit stressed when she kind of dropped her head when I asked her to take off. So now I'm actually asking her to come a little bit off the rail right there. That way she would have room to turn into it. So sometimes what you'll see me do to add a little bit more forward movement is I'll try to slap the line kind of on her butt or on her back end to add that forward movement, and some of them will like jump forward when you do that, and you have to make sure not to pull back on them when they do it because you are asking them to go forward. But in her case, she doesn't really react all too much. And I don't know if any of you watched my videos with Boo. I think it might have been in my like 3rd week update or my March update with her. But when I would ask Boo to stop, she would get really, really antsy and want to keep going. And with this mare, I ask her to stop, and she'll just stand there until I ask her to go again. So you can see that's how you can see every horse is a little bit different in what they kind of naturally excel at. And I really like long lining because it's kind of like, riding them from the ground. So when I get on them and ask them to start moving for the first time, they at least have a little bit of an idea of what I'm asking. So here I'm just showing getting her in her paddock. She doesn't come up to me, but she also didn't really move away, which I'm okay with. And at this point, I'm still kind of like weary about getting too close to her. I still don't really trust her at this point. So she had a little bit of a break. That's what you saw when I untacked her and then recaught her. Now, she doesn't really care about the mounting block or me being next to it, so I didn't really have to work on that with her. I just kind of put it there and she stood there and didn't really get worried. So I desensitize a little bit with music above them where I'm going to be talking. And I really like when I have a 3-step block because I can get over them a little bit more without being on them.